Hey everyone, I'm teen writer Noah Barfield, author of that incredible, amazing action fantasy novel Legendland, which is on Amazon now, and I'll be providing a link for it in the description below. Now this is weekly inspirations, so I have come to inspire all of you. Also, I haven't done a weekly inspirations video in a while, and I felt like doing one. Now, before I start with all of the inspirations and rolling thunderous waves crashing upon your psyche, I first have to do some updates. Update number one, as my schedule gets busier and busier, I have less and less time to do videos, meaning I will only be able to do one video a week. I cannot do two, it's just too much for me, but I will be able to do one. And don't worry, I can do weekly inspirations, Writer's Corner, and all the videos you love and adore, but I will have to alternate them on a weekly basis. Two, I'm going to try and make all my videos conform to my single standard, meaning they're all going to roughly be the same length, or at least that's my goal, so that you don't have to be stuck with me for 2 minutes longer than you want it to be, but also you won't have 4 less minutes than you were getting. So, let the inspiration commence! I've been inspired this week by water. I've been inspired by water from two things. One, I went to the beach in Georgia and Florida, and I just had an incredibly fun time. I had a blast, and it was awesome. Now, I'm in the snow in Wisconsin, and I've also had a blast, but they're both forms of water, though I've garnered the same amount of enjoyment from both of them, and that has inspired me. Two, I've been incredibly inspired by the song What the Water Gave Me, or at least the cover by Come the Dawn. Just the message, intensity, and sounds and feel of it has impacted me and inspired me in all forms of liquid. So, especially water. Moving on, water is integral to everything about us. At least in the scope of humanity, water is ultra necessary. Most of our planet is covered in water, we're mostly comprised of water, and if we don't have water on a regular basis, we're dead. I believe we can survive 3 weeks without food, which I shudder at the thought of, but we can only go 3 days without water, which is really, really dangerous, actually, and would make us just dehydrated, shriveled up bags of flesh and bone to be perfect meals for anything that wants to come and garner our corpses as sustenance. So, I feel that water is not used enough in stories and is not played as much of a key part as it does in real life. So I hope to inspire you all in 3 different ways with different water things. First off, location. Second, symbolization. Third, forms, necessity, and uses. Alright, so first off, location. Water is, as I've said, covers most of our planet. It's about 75% of our entire Earth, and I believe we've only explored 5% of that. To put that in perspective, last time I checked, we knew more about space and the moon and the different planets that we've seen than we do about our own ocean and the mysteries that lie within it. So that's just crazy. And I honestly can't believe that. So, but it's funny because now we have most of our stories taking place on the other 25% of what our Earth is made up of, land, which I know it's because we spend the majority of our lives on land and comparatively going to the water on very rare occasions, but still, you'd think that we would have used more writing stuff to be able to have water be a primary location since it is such a key part of everything that we are, have been, will be, and need. But I'm just saying, think about the different ways that you can have your location revolve around water, or at least have water be a key location in maybe one of your scenes, chapters. It can be your entire book, I don't care. But think about how necessary it is, and then how you can put that in there. Maybe a dystopian future where we've destroyed the mainland and had to all migrate to sea, now living on floating habitats with the water around us. We've only explored about 5% of the ocean. What about all the mysteries that lie within? Maybe some tunnels in the Earth's crust that conceal a hidden threat. Maybe Atlantis, maybe underground cities, underwater habitats instead. We can have pirates, different linked things where we have a war between the ocean folk and the land folk now that they've been apart for so long and they've evolved for different things. They have different ideals. It can be a war between nations, but on a much different scale because it's two things we're so very, very familiar with. Location, I mean, is obviously a huge part of any writing work and can really draw us in. The water is so unique and so integral to everything that it really has a strong primal connection to most of humanity and is a very interesting way to go about whenever you're setting out and planning things location wise. Two, symbolization. Water can symbolize so many things about your characters, your story, and can just be a huge inspiration to draw off of. In the TV shows Avatar: Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra, most of the characters that were able to manipulate the four elements fire, water, earth, and air, their personalities were based and symbolized off of the elements that they control. In the same way, you can draw off of the inspiration of water for your characters. They don't necessarily have to control it unless that's your thing, but they can at least, their movements can be fluid. Or, water has different forms. Their movements can be fluid, like liquid water, or it can be light and fluffy, and their personality can be like that, like snow, or it can be very cold, concrete, like ice. Someone can be cold as ice. Or they can be very flighty and up in the air because water is also steam. There's so many different ways that you can symbolize your characters or your story off of it. Your story can flow, and you can just take water as a basis or as an inspiration for most of what you do whenever you're writing characters. It can at least serve as a good chunk of inspiration, symbolization wise, for your characters and for your story arcs, because water eventually gets its way. So that's the way that you want at least a main character to be, and you also, it's the way that most people want their story to be, that it eventually gets its way and that it's wound a path through someone's mind that is never going to be filled back up except by more of their story, aka water. Three forms, uses, and necessity. I've already covered the forms of it, but ice, water, snow, steam, all those are different things that are incredibly useful. Ice, we have so many like layers of ice on our planet. What's beneath that? We don't know. Why don't you tell us? Steam engines. Steampunk. That's an entire subgenre that needs to be explored. It's based off of steam and steam power. That's a huge thing. Why don't we have more of that? Why don't we find different uses for steam, the different powers that can be within that? Or what about the different fantastic machines that have a combination of early Earth technology, aka steam power, and then some alternative energy source that's found in this alternative timeline of ours? Also, the necessity of water is rarely played upon whenever people are writing stories. Yes, we can be waging wars with these armies and magical battles on the ground, or ginormous epic space battles where ships are firing on each other and boarding parties are landing, and it's amazing and glorious. But what happens if your key pilot hasn't slept in a day, hasn't eaten in two because the rations are running scarce because of the blockade, and is pretty dehydrated? Your faculties start to be impaired after 1 day of no sleep. 2 days without food starts to make someone very grumpy and make them have snap decisions that may not always be best. And after a little bit of dehydration, we start to get a splitting headache. What about after medium average dehydration? We're starting to have severe impairments and on our faculties and on everything that we do. That can be a huge factor. Someone's determination to do something can be their strength and their weakness. It can make them forego things like sleep, water, and food, which water can be the real downfall of someone if they have a lack of it. Two, you know, death by water is rarely ever used, and I don't mean to be glum here, but drowning is such an emotional thing because it can happen at the user's will, but it's also such a powerful scene to have someone drown. That's an incredible death, and I don't mean incredible as in it's amazing, I mean it's incredibly emotionally impactful because there's no external signs of it. It's like someone just decided to drop dead and die. Much as how the Avada Kedavra curse is feared in Harry Potter, humans, we aren't born with the ability to swim, we kind of learn it, and we have this innate fear of drowning. As much as we have this primal connection to water, we have this innate fear of drowning and of the unknown. So, coupled with dark waters and not being able to see the bottom, plus us not being able to be born to swim, and some people still not knowing how to swim by the time that they die, that can play a huge part into characters, and a fear of the water is not only incredibly common in the real world, but it can also relate your characters to other people. Now, I hope that by talking and rambling about water, its different forms, necessities, location, etc., so much that I have inspired you all to think about using water in your story. Maybe you won't use it. Maybe you won't make it an integral part. Maybe you won't play upon the importance of water in its different forms, or how it can be used in almost every situation, from symbolization to the demise of your own characters. But you might at least want to consider it whenever you are engaging in your writing endeavors. Now, this marks the end of this weekly inspirations video, but I'll be coming back at you with more videos next week, so long as the sun doesn't fall out of the sky and burn us all in a blaze of fiery, glorious death. Now, you can buy my book, Legendland, on Amazon.com, and I'll provide the link for that below. Thank you all for watching. I hope I've inspired someone out there, and that you continue to enjoy.